Probably not. I would guess at the beginning when you learn these, they tried to make you memorize them. We're doing note cards because on the keystones, they're going to give you this formula sheet. So I want you to be able to look at the formula sheet and understand how it's going to help you. Our homework tonight is the whole worksheet of 2.5 number 1. There's no solving. It's just writing the properties. So that's kind of good if you don't like math. Do you see the word communicate, or can you see how when I see the commutative property, I hear the word communicate? When you communicate with someone, it should go like this. Hi, Maddie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great, thank you. We just did the commutative property because we communicated back and forth. Now, some people I say, hi, how are you? And they sit there like, I'm talking in a different language. So you have good communication skills. Very good. So, we just modeled. So, this was me saying good morning to Maddie, and Maddie saying good morning to me with her excellent communication skills. It irritates me when I say how are you to somebody and they say good. You should say thank you, I'm good, how are you? But how did I know to put the plus sign in between? Because it is addition. Listen, when we have multiple choice ones of these, people fly through them and don't read. If it's addition, it's not going to have a multiplication sign. Here is the commutative of multiplication. Same thing, only I'm saying good morning to Maddie, and Maddie's saying good morning back, but since it's multiplication, there's a multiplication sign in it. Not hard. If the mathematical example would be 7 plus 3 and 3 plus 7, and they equal each other. 10 equals 10. This guy would be 7 times 3. Oh, my great whistler, unless it's Mr. D, equals 3 times 7. Communication, commutative, but you're going to have this right in front of you. Anybody remember those? Okay, not so much at this age, but when you were younger, you had a friend or a couple friends that you hung out with. Has that changed as you've gotten older, who your group of friends is? Us being military, I had to find new groups of friends every 2 years. And as an adult, that kind of stunk. But associative, when you change groups of friends, you change who you associate with. I see it at lunch duty all the time. People change lunch tables. All right? If it's the associative of addition, imagine this being 3 friends. God bless you. And they're all in the same order. Notice the order didn't change. Well, here, Sally and Susie are friends, and they're not including Samantha, right? Things change. A couple years down the road, they mature. Susie and Samantha are now friends, and Sally is out. It's who they associate with. Order doesn't change. It's just who's grouped together. So this could be 2 plus 3, how about 7, plus 5. That's going to equal the same thing as if I group the 7 and the 5 and not the 2. Who I associate with. And multiplication's the same thing. They're all multiplied. But who is grouped changes. The order's the same, but who is grouped changes. So I could use my same example, 2 times 7 times 5 and 2 times 7 times 5. And these guys are friends, and they leave out the 5. And then those guys are friends. But it's kind of weird, because if you stay in the same place and are an adult, none of that mattered anymore. Don't you agree, Mr. D? You run into somebody that wasn't in your group, and you're like, I'm just so glad to see somebody from my graduating class. Anybody remember this from the past? No? Probably if you do, it seems easier. Everything's easier the second time around, because your brain gets stronger and smarter and all of that jazz. Okay, on your list right now. Commutative and associative, they're right in the middle. All righty. Colton, you ready? All right. So, the identity property of addition. If I look in the mirror, unless it's a freaky mirror that scares me, I should see my same self, right? The identical same thing. What number do I add anything to get the identical same thing back? 0. So the identity property of addition means I can take any number and add it to 0 and I will get the identical same thing back. It's like looking in the mirror. In numbers, it's 9 plus 0 equals 9. Well, of course, there's an identity for addition and then there's an identity for multiplication. What number in multiplication do you always get the same thing back? Lily?
1.
Yeah. So it'd be 1 times A or A times 1. I like A1 steak sauce. Anybody like A1 steak sauce? I do. I prefer Worcester sauce, but if we have A1, I'll use that too. Anybody like Worcester sauce? Oh, I like that. All right. So this would be like 9 times 1 equals 9. All righty. These guys are the ones that are not on your card. So if you want to go ahead and write them down as we go on both, that's fine. If your card's too wet, you can hold off. The inverse property of addition tells me if I add a number and it's negative, what am I going to get? If I have $2 and spend $2. Anybody? 0. Okay. That's the inverse of addition. And the inverse of multiplication says if I take a number times its reciprocal, and his reciprocal is 1 over itself. If I do that, I hit 1. So 5 times 1 over 5 gives me 1. What that says is if I have 5 pieces of gum, and I give my 5 friends a piece of gum, we all get 1 piece. Alrighty, last one, symmetric. If A equals B, then B is going to equal A. So my example I don't like, but if 2 times 3 equals 6, then 6 must be equal to 2 times 3. I guess there's more at the bottom. Those were all on, I guess. Yeah, those were. I lied. It's the last 2. Alrighty, Hunter, are you ready? I'm almost done. Almost, I promise. Then we'll start to talk. It's a good thing we had Arts and Crafts Day or we'd be bored out of our minds. There's some serious note takers in here, Mr. B. Alrighty, rolling on. The distributive property, we have used so much already. My pre-calc kids used it today. So when you have a number out in front of your parentheses, that means you're like the newspaper delivery or the mail delivery. You're giving that number to everybody in there. We've already done that. I'm not going to say too much about it. The multiplication property of 0, these are the ones you don't have. If I take any number times 0, I get 0. Don't confuse that with the identity property of addition. And any number times -1 gives me the negative of that number. Those are the 2. And we're not going to use those that much, but I felt like I needed to give it to you. Mr. D, the 2 quarterlies that we still have here, I need to, maybe when I'm not here Friday, are you going to be here Friday? Okay. Alrighty, so let's put this to use. I want you to take a second and talk with your group about what you see happening there. For instance, I know 2 things back to back with no symbol is multiplying. So take 10 seconds with your group looking at your sheets and see if you can come up with what we're talking about here. Anybody coming up with it? I do. And coming up with this activity, we're going to have a memory game. Or with this lesson, a memory activity. Just put it back to the cover. Yes. What? 49, I think. Okay, did anybody come up with Madison? Yes. Nathan? Yes, it is the identity of multiplication. I want it written like this. If you just say multiplication, I'm not going to give it to you. If you just say identity, well, that's not right either. I'll let you shortcut and abbreviate, but that is it. Did any other groups figure that one out together or think they got it? Okay. How about this guy? Let's look. We have 3, 4, 5, negative 3, negative 3, 4, 5. No order has changed. It's not the distributive because there's not a guy out front. The only thing that has changed is who is in the parentheses. Any takers on what that would be? Remember we talked about who you hung out with in grade school and then when you hung out with different people in high school? What do you think? Yes. Now this is one you have to at least go to ASSOC. Because if you abbreviate ASS, it's a bad word. So I want that. And then you have to have addition. All right. If I look at the next one, my numbers are all in the same order. It's definitely multiplication. First these two were grouped, then those two were grouped. What do you think? Only the friends have changed, nothing else. Who they've associated with changed. So it's the associative of what? Yes. And this guy you can say ASSOC of mult. Pay attention to the operation. It would be so frustrating for you to know it was associative, but on multiple choice, hurry through and pick addition for that guy. Alrighty. What property is it when I add it to 0? I get the identical same thing back. And it's adding. So something of addition. Any takers? Brennan?
Inverse.
Not inverse. It's an I one. Maddie, what do you think?
Identity.
Yes, inverse would be a negative 2 equals 0. Look at your cards. Identity of addition. This next one, I know there's no operation, so it's understood to be multiplication. I will actually give partial credit if you get something of multiplication. This was an example of the conversation I had with Maddie. I talked to her, she talked back to me. What type of property is that of multiplication? Is it associative, commutative? So you could do COMM. You have to pay attention. So this one is something of addition. And again, it's just the order change. There's only 2. That is commutative. Okay. I want you to take a minute and a half to do the next 3. With your partner groups, I want to hear you talk and do the next 3. Mr. D, I'm going to rate that Jacob went to the nurse. So we have a record if Mom calls. All right, we're down to a minute and 15 seconds. Chit-chat away, please. Chit, chit, chat, chat, chit, chit, chat, chat, talk, 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 talk. Anybody need more time? All right, I'm cutting you off at crack time there. All righty. For the first one, I see multiplication. So there should be something that says multiplication. Hunter, did you get something of multiplication? Very close. Identity of multiplication involves 1. So this was the conversation I had with Maddie. Did anybody get commutative? Good. Because you're just, one thing is one way and then it's flipped. Alrighty. How about this guy? What did we get when we multiplied something by 0? Multiplication property of what? 0. Yep. We have an adding to 0, but that's the identity. Oh, Brennan, you said this one earlier. Yes, and you could say inverse of addition or additive inverse, any of them. This is going to